Welcome in to Head on a Swivel. I'm Chris Hayes along with Scott Green, and we're here to talk to you about the college football playoffs. It's on us. It's Christmas time, New Year's Eve coming up, all those nice things. And as a teacher, it's very exciting for me to have those nice 2 weeks off. I know I can't lament too much because I know there's people out there still having to grind and get after it. But I know we're ready for some college football with one tomorrow and 3 games on Saturday. Can't wait. I'm going to talk about a lot of things going forward, so stick around. Georgia Sports Autographs is built by collectors for collectors. They know what fans want because they've been in your shoes, hunting for that perfect piece, the right signature, in the right spot. At every signing, Georgia Sports Autographs make sure it's done right, using the proper ink, following best practices, and paying attention to every detail so you end up with a product you'll be proud to display. They've already worked with many of Georgia's top athletes, and their network gives them access to just about anything you can imagine. If you don't see it listed, don't assume it can't be done. Chances are they can get it for you. Georgia Sports Autograph tests themselves with every event, always improving, always delivering for the ultimate addition to your collection. Trust the team that treats every autograph like its own. Georgia Sports Autographs, where every signature tells a story. Welcome in to Head on a Swivel. I'm Chris Hayes along with Scott Green. We're here to talk to you about the college football playoffs. There's a lot of things going on from this past week. We know we had all the accolades that were won. Definitely, it was cool to see Brett Thorson, win his award as well. I know that we only had, I believe, two first teamers on the all SEC team, which was kind of unique in its own perspective as well. But as you know, the big hype goes around the Heisman Trophy, it seems, and Fernando Mendoza, obviously the quarterback from Indiana, won it this past week. And, what I wanted to talk about, and not necessarily jump down a massive rabbit hole, but I think it needs to be addressed, and it's been addressed by many pundits out there, Scott. Obviously the reactionary component that we got from Diego Pavia from Vanderbilt, there's a lot of deserving people, and I think it's something to be untold a lot, that it's just a humbling experience itself just to be basically nominated for the opportunity to go to New York. So, for him to even be there was an honor. And it's been a real cool story to watch what Vanderbilt's done this year under Clark Lee. I think, obviously an unprecedented season, didn't come out the way they wanted to, finishing 10-2. We talked about in our last show how Clark Lee handled that with the accountability measure that you want to see from your head coach. It's not just coach speak. I think that's actually what he's trying to breathe into his players. But unfortunately, with Fernando Mendoza winning the award from Indiana, you can definitely tell that there was some bitterness from old Diego Pavia. And mostly, even though you may say, well, back in the 80s and 90s, you may have had the same scenario, or we're not living in that time anymore. The internet is forever. And we all saw, most of you who paid attention to any of this, saw the Instagram post that Diego Pavia posted. And, here he is with some of his guys, talking about F all the voters, but family for life, just being basically a sore loser and showing his tail. And there's actually more footage as the night goes on of him basically calling out Indiana, saying F them and all that, just basically showing his ass. And just really not a good look for not only yourself, but for the program. What I see is that as a distraction that I hope Clark Lee nipped in the bud. I'm going to let you elaborate because, it went to a apology letter, which, may we digress, was not probably written by him. But I just wanted to get your thoughts on that, Scott, from the Heisman Trophy winning, Mendoza to Diego Pavia's reaction after all it was said and done.
Yeah, Diego made a major mistake in a big way. You're on a stage, like you said, that you've earned. You've had the privilege to articulate, everything behind you, really encapsulate what a great season that Vanderbilt has had, really back to back. I mean, elevating a Vanderbilt that we're used to being barely bowl eligible to an actual competitor, to, defeating Alabama last year, to having another great season this year, being at 10-2 and a fringe playoff team. You've now just kind of pulled the rug out of all that narrative, because you went from an endearing player that a lot of people were rooting for. Yeah, a little bit of arrogance, but, that's borderline between confidence. All of a sudden, you make a massive mistake on the biggest stage that even the casual fan tunes into that's not an active football game. And then you don't make it any better by being emotional. And you'd hope some of those gentlemen around him would have said, "Hey, Diego, look, man, you earning the right to be here and not being a playoff team says enough. You don't, just take a big breath, don't overreact." Again, it's just one of those nasty PR things where you really sit there and think about it, saying, why didn't someone around him, one, he should be able to curtail his own emotions. I think this is just clearly an emotional response. That's Diego's thing. He went from, confident, borderline arrogant to where I think even the most average viewer would say this guy's clearly arrogant to the point where it's kind of getting obnoxious. Baker Mayfield is a good example of a guy that really was on that fringe too.
Yep.
His arrogance was on the field though. That was after, a big performance. It seemed goofy to the outside viewers. You hated him because, he wasn't on your team, but it was never in the presser. He said something just so outrageous, especially on a big stage like this. The good news is he did ultimately get humbled, but long story short here, Diego just doesn't seem to be, he's killed his own narrative that he built up. And that's what I hate to see, is that you've done so many good things on the field and now everything's just about your attitude. And if you don't think this is going to hurt you in terms of PR relationships, it is. I mean, you gain nothing by doing this. And that's the thing I think some of these young men and players have to start analyzing is, what am I gaining by doing this? Because, hey, you can say that to your friends. I mean, again, I'm sure there's been worse things said about the voters, and some of them kind of deserve it. I mean, Heisman voters are not nearly as knowledgeable as you'd assume such a prestigious award be. But it's just something that you kind of shake your head at and say, well, man, you've just lost, your most average person from saying, look, Diego may have been arrogant, but he was great on the field. Love what he did for Vanderbilt. Everyone's rooting for Vandy at some point, I'm sure. And it's just kind of a massive eye roll, and you hate to see it.
Yeah, in the words of Davin Bellamy after the Rose Bowl, humble yourself. Humble yourself, in words going to Baker Mayfield, actually.
Right.
But in this case scenario, I look at his stats, and I really, he's got over 4,000 total purpose yards, 27 touchdowns throwing the football, not counting what he's rushing in, over 30, I'm sure, total touchdowns as well, with 8 interceptions and 88 QBR rating. He was well deserving to be there. I know maybe the stats, and you look at his, stature, being a little bit shorter than your most prototypical quarterback, but, Baker Mayfield, not necessarily the largest quarterback either, and is still trying to thrive with Tampa Bay in the NFL. I really thought, as you carried that story, Scott, it really made me understand kind of a perspective feel, because to me, the longevity of this situation is now going to be almost black flagged into a negative connotation than more positive, which what he was establishing going forward with his stats, what he had done with Vanderbilt this year, going 10-2, but he's also a 24-year-old kid. He needs to show more maturity in the fact of where he's at. And I think that goes to sort of that sense of entitlement. I've heard people say, well, he come from New Mexico. New Mexico State's obviously where he started his tenure at, moved from there. He didn't have anything. Well, there's nobody's a victim when it comes to playing Division I college football. You've got to learn over time that there's an accountability measure, because you're not only reflecting yourself individually, you then reflect your family, and then you also reflect your football family, and that reflects towards your head coach. It's just like being in the classroom. I used to always tell my kids, if I ever had a substitute, and it was the same thing on the football field. I'm just using a quick reference here. But, when you're in there with that sub, you're doing the same kind of work you would be if I was in there, because when you act up and your behavior is not what it should be, what it's expected of you, you're reflecting on me. And it's the same principle. If I'm Clark Lee, I'm in his ear immediately. And what made it even worse, Scott, was the Chat GPT sort of apology letter that was written, that was put out on social media platforms. There was dead giveaways in the literature of what, when AI writes a formal letter for you, which I can understand because I use it for emails all the time when I'm writing professionally between colleagues. But, when it comes down to it, there was just not sincere, heartfelt thought to me that goes into when you're having something like this that you're trying to express to your fans, to the world of college football, to those people like Reese Davis, who even spoke and said, man, I'm glad he didn't win it now based off that. I don't know if you saw that earlier this week as well, but he made the comment about him not even liking the fact, of what he said, and obviously was glad that he didn't win it now. So, just elaborate just a little bit more on that, and we'll move on to what's definitely everybody's wanting to talk about, which is the college football playoffs. Just your final thoughts on that.
Yeah, that's the thing that really disappointed me is I thought surely just an emotional thing. I'm sure he's celebrating. There may have been someone that kind of sparked it up, and Diego's obviously a really, I have to say it at this point, arrogant guy. He believes in himself, and there's nothing wrong with that. But then you get a chance to kind of redeem yourself, say, look, I was just paying, I put so many dues in for this. I thought that I would surely be, the finalist. That's what I just had my mindset on. That's what I dreamed of doing. And I let my emotions get the better of me. Mea culpa, mea maxima culpa, kind of do, as you should. But then to have a disingenuous chat GPT letter that you could generate in 5 minutes instead of just doing a simple video with all the technology we have, I think what would have been better is to come out on the Instagram, kind of do the same thing and say, look, guys, I love this sport. I poured so much into it. I genuinely thought that I was one of the best, if not the best football players the majority of the season. Again, just a true, sincere sorry would have fixed all this. But now it's like the narrative is not only, well, he did good things for Vanderbilt, but Diego Pavia is kind of who he is.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. I was just talking. I've got a lot of people that are following, and a lot of people that I've had that I've actually taught in class that are giving some comments to you. I'm not trying to break up what you're saying, because I think what you're saying is spot on. And not to, like I said, jump down too big of a rabbit hole, because I could sit here and talk about this all day long, because it goes back to the OG mentality of what you want to see with accountability, dependability. You don't want it to be a distraction for your football team. A 10-2 football team that's going to be taking on the Iowa Hawkeyes. It's almost in a sense where you need to humble yourself and realize the abilities of what you have and what you're able to do, and to finish this season strong, finish 11-2, work on that draft stock, whatever it may be. You're dealing with all the suits that you're trying to give the NCAA to project the longevity of maybe you staying for an extra year, but you're not helping yourself when you create this sort of negative atmosphere around you. And unfortunately, it's just changed my complete respect value for this youngin as the year has gone on. And like I said, my little value here in Northwest Georgia about Diego Pavia is really, atypical of what most people have out there. But if everybody kind of fits in that same scenario, then obviously that heartwarming, heartfelt story you felt for him as he goes to Vanderbilt and starts doing some great things, to me has just completely been taken over and completely submerged by these negative things that have happened, that have transpired over the last couple of weeks. So needless to say, it's not a good look for the program. And this right here, by putting it on social media, now it's landmarked forever. It's you basically got bookmarks. You've got this recorded forever in history of the internet. And unfortunately, that's a bad look that you don't want to leave with your program. Scott, we got to have a winner, man. We part of the Patreon, as I promised, I would be doing a live giveaway tonight. It's a good thing that my actual wheel has gotten bigger, which means we've got more Patreon members as part of the group of Coach Hayes Hudl. And tonight I'm going to be giving away a London Humphreys signed authentic. As you can see here on the back, it's got the sticker on it. It is a certified London Humphreys signed mini helmet. And this is part of a giveaway with Georgia Sports Autographs. I partner with them. And I've got the list here down on the bottom right-hand side of the screen. The top right side of the screen is my wheel that I'm going to be spinning, and we're going to find out who our winner is. Jerry Willis won the Elias Williams jersey this past week, and got that sent to him. Very excited to let him be the first winner of the Patreon. So we're going to give this wheel a spin, and we're going to find out who our winner is of the London Humphreys mini helmet as part of Georgia Sports Autographs. Here's spinning the wheel. Here we go. Looks like we got somebody actually on the screen now. Let's see. T is all I've got for the name, so we're going to have to find out who T is. I've got your email address, T, but hopefully you're watching or going to check by podcast maybe later. Scott and I will be doing this for the rest of the hour, and then, of course, this will be recorded for people later to watch as well. But T right here on the actual screen, I didn't even really have to maximize it there. You are the winner of today's drawing for the Patreon. And again, you are the winner of a London Humphreys signed mini helmet as courtesy of Georgia Sports Autographs. So congratulations to you, and definitely appreciate you being a part of the Patreon. I have some small parting words here, and then we'll be right back with you. Hello, I'm Coach Hayes. I hope you're enjoying the breakdown that you're watching currently. In partnership with Georgia Sports Autographs, Coach Hayes Hudl has brought to you by Patreon, and I have put all of my exclusive video details, hours and hours worth of breakdowns from X's and O's, with bias towards Georgia football, obviously, but I do break down college football in general. I love the game, coached the game for over 20 plus years, so I enjoy breaking down the game for those who want to understand it a little bit better. As always, I am trying to connect fans to the fundamentals of football. Having the opportunity to run the Patreon site not only gives you the opportunity to watch all the X's and O breakdowns, but you also get player profiles, you get recruit breakdowns, the new 2026 class that's coming in as well as the fact that I will be giving away monthly contributions as partnered with Georgia Sports Autographs. If you look below, you can actually see the scroll bar rolling across the screen there for their website, so that you can go in right now using my exclusive coupon of DAWGSIGN, DAWGSIGN. If you're looking for any holiday gifts for your friend or family and they're hard to buy for, this would be a great opportunity to go to Georgia Sports Autographs, be able to look for something and get 20% off your total purchase price. As part of the Patreon, you will be lined in to win free merchandise as well. As partnered with Georgia Sports Autographs, this past week I gave away an Elias Williams signed authentic jersey. This week I will be giving away a London Humphreys signed mini helmet as well. And all you have to do is sign into the Patreon account. It's sign in for the exclusive membership, where you get the X's and O's, you get the player profiles, you get the recruit profiles, you get the Head on the Swivel podcast with me and Scott Green, as well as the chance for winning free merch every month. And that goes all the way through the off season into next fall. So we're excited to be partnered with Georgia Sports Autographs. Be sure to check them out. If you do plan on buying something, please use my coupon code of DAWGSIGN, DAWGSIGN, and check out my Patreon account. Very small amount to pay in to get quality breakdowns, X's and O's, player profiles, recruit profiles, and chances to win free merch as part of Georgia Sports Autographs. I appreciate you checking out the video. Please take the time to check out Patreon as well as GeorgiaSportsAutographs.com. Have a good one. Take care and go Dawgs. Hey, did you get a chance, Scott, to watch any of the Georgia high school playoffs this weekend? I tell you, it was really cool to see, being a part of that. I've coached in a lot of playoff games, first, second round. I've watched my son go through 5 rounds deep, win a state championship. So I know what it's like to be at the Dome and the atmosphere that is there. Uniquely enough, though, it was kind of neat to see the Carrollton game and the Buford game, which was a high profile game, and to see the people to show out in that game playing the opposite sides of the balls of what they were being recruited for. With Zyke Helton, who's going to be basically a center for us. Stacey Searles has got him, but man, he showed out on the defensive line, getting after Raula's younger brother there. And as well as on the other side, you've got, Tyreek Green from Buford running as a running back. And I think we've actually got him. We're recruiting him as a defensive back. But, to me, he reminds me of just being an athlete. He's going to play wherever they want him to play. He's going to do whatever they need him to do. I love the mentality. In fact, I think Tyreek Boogie is his nickname, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. He's already going to be in Athens as part of the bowl practices as well. So that's kind of unique to see, being one of the mid-years coming in. What do you think about that?
Oh, yeah. I appreciate you letting me caveat. This is something I just want to sell people on. At any point in time during a recruiting cycle, you're sitting and looking at Georgia's recruits by stars. You need to stop yourself, look in the mirror, and then come back to look at the 24/7 recruiting rankings. Do not worry about stars. These two athletes absolutely were the all-stars of the game. I mean, you couldn't go 2 or 3 plays without hearing their name called out and then referencing signed with the Georgia Bulldogs, signed with the Georgia Bulldogs. And you just see the type of mentality that Georgia's trying to go after and has established itself as a premier landing spot for. These are guys that are willing to play both sides. Obviously, when you're really good in high school, you play both ways. I was just good enough to do that. So when you do that, those are kind of your premier players you have. So you already know they're going to be leaning to a D1 level spot. But the mentality, the physicality, how they played, the aggression, everything just screamed, I'm a future Georgia Bulldog, and I couldn't be happier for him because, like you said, this was such a high-profile matchup, and these plays were made in such critical moments. I mean, obviously turnovers ended up eating Carrollton in some critical spots. Obviously, their quarterback's really, really young, which, kind of part and parcel for high school football. But to see those players make those plays when they did, to me, that was just as special. because again, just 2 or 3 play cycles, every other series, you just see their name or some massive play. I mean, Ty made an excellent run in a critical moment late. I want to say late third quarter. And you're just thinking, man, like neither one of these guys has been stopped all day long, and they never were. Like it was just a heck of a game.
To me, the quality of the game too was even just something you could tell how those kids were coached so well. The physicality that you saw up front, the kick slides by your tackles, how they block schemed up front, how the defense got after it on both sides of the football. To me, just the quality level of that game was at its peak, and being able to see Georgia high school football at its peak throughout the course of those couple of days, just to watch, those state champions be crowned, and seeing some good things from that, because you look at Caden Prothro from Bowden did an excellent job as well for his program. Bowden goes back a long time for me as well. When I was at Tryon, which is where I played, Northwest Georgia, home of where Stacy Searles is from, we played Bowden every year. I know that area very well. I know that campus very well. But, to see those guys come out and play the way they did, and, and Caden Prothro to be an excellent asset for University of Georgia as well in their recruiting class. And I think he's going to be a kid that's probably going to end up playing more X than he does actually the true tight end Y. But we'll just have to see as he gets older and builds to himself and what he does. But just some quality athletes showing out in Georgia high school football playoffs and helping their teams win games or compete to win games, or being right there on the edge of winning a game, and knowing that they're going to be committed and are committed and have signed with the University of Georgia going forward. There's a lot of different things out there, the player profiles, the recruit profiles, and things that I do. I know Justice Fitzpatrick was another one that I was really excited about from corner position. I believe he's at St. Thomas Aquinas, tore his ACL, but, he didn't get, let that get him down. I was so glad to see that he actually signed and did his paperwork as well. And that allows him to now come to the University of Georgia and do all of his rehab and get ready to go, just similar to what Ryan Montgomery did coming in, and being able to do all of his rehab with the University of Georgia Athletics and be ready to go probably, sooner than most people would post ACL surgery. We got some college football playoffs to talk about, Scott. First game, believe it or not, we have one game. It's kind of unique how the games are being played. As I looked up the lineups, I was very surprised at how the lineups were, but we're going to get a banger right out of the gate, 8 versus 9. Bama travels to Norman, Oklahoma for the rematch. You've got the 3-loss Bama team. And, you look at what Oklahoma has done this year, being a defensively heavy team, not necessarily relying as much on their offense. John Mateer has been hit or miss. And honestly, to me, it's progressively gotten worse since his hand injury. But, as you look at this game, you look at this matchup, what are your thoughts as these two clash tomorrow night on Friday night?
So just for those who are kind of unaware, this is at Norman, 8 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
I looked at the weather. And I'm not a big weather shit influence, but there's kind of a threshold, even as you game plan in, knowing, hey, look, this is going to impact things. The weatherman is telling me it's 12 to 20 mile an hour winds. That's going to come to a massive impact and point. And it really seems funny talking about these two teams in this same, mindset, but they're going to have to run the ball effectively. And it doesn't have to be run the ball effectively in context to what Georgia's able to do, what Indiana or Ohio State's able to do. You have to run the ball effectively between the two teams. And I think both defenses have been – Oklahoma's been outstanding the whole year. Alabama's defense has become outstanding. I think in these rematches, it kind of favors a defensive-minded setup of, look, I kind of know what your principles are. I'm going to be able to do a lot. But one thing I'll give Kalen DeBoer tons of credit on, when the guy has multiple weeks to prepare for an opponent, he does an outstanding job of finding those vacancies and those little windows he can continue to hit, and he'll do it for the first half. That much I can guarantee you. I would not be surprised if Alabama has a good amount of success offensively early on, but really the halftime adjustments or lack thereof is really a concern for Alabama. In fact, where if I was Alabama, I'd be kind of worried is, where's Ty Simpson? Because Mateer is already inconsistent. He either makes a throw that leads you to believe, hey, I'm one of the best quarterbacks in college football, if not the nation. And then about 10 throws between that where you're like, you weren't even reading the right man on this simple RPO. I mean, there was a play against Alabama. He almost threw an interception. And for no good reason, based on the read man, just on the end of the line, just had no idea what he was looking at. So that's going to be the balance. But you know what you got. You know what you got in John Mateer with Ty Simpson. I really don't know at this point. And look, Ty could come out and be absolutely outstanding. Would surprise me any. And to be outstanding against this Oklahoma defense would be really, really impressive. But I really do think the weather at this point can impact a lot of the long game, maybe some of the intermediate. And it seems so funny to say between the teams, but running it effectively and having somewhat of a balanced approach is so critical to the game the way it is, because all the best offenses are not scoring just ungodly amount of points against nobodies. They're efficient against everybody. And I think that's something that Bama's going to have to really mentally reset and get back to, because Oklahoma's going to get Mason Thomas back, who is by far their best player. He's kind of a mixed hybrid. I wouldn't say he's a power or speed rusher. I think he's kind of a mix
He's
of
by far
both.
their best defensive lineman, though, without a doubt.
Oh, absolutely. And that's saying something, because look, Oklahoma's defensive front is deep. But yeah, he's absolutely the star on that front. One thing I'm going to give Brent Venables tons of credit too. Look, if Ty's already been having issues doing the simple things right with a little bit of pressure, because his footwork doesn't tend to collapse, it just tends to get really active, and that messes up his timing and his throws. Oklahoma's not going to show you what they're going to do pre-snap. Pre-snap, post-snap to Brent Venables is like a great chess match for him. Now, a lot of advanced defensive coaches do this. For Brent Venables is kind of a league of his own. I'd put him with the Kirby smarts of, hey, I'm going to do one thing and set you up to believe this, and then actually it's going to be, off man, or it's going to be some sort of match coverage that you had no idea. And I think that really messed Ty up. In fact, Ty almost threw a second interception, if not for a flag. So that's very uncommon for Ty. I mean, you keep that, just like the same with Gunnar Stockton. You get an interception from him, you need to keep it, because it's not going to happen too often. Some of that's system-based, some of that's not. But the other thing that I'm really interested in this game, outside of like the weather, the running component, is how does Bama's offensive line fix a lot of their issues? Because I noticed against Georgia, they just went into simple slide protections. They just, they're not doing a lot of scans. Scan simple. They, kick step, read the man in front of them and block them. But they're kind of slow out of their get up, and they were against Oklahoma, and that was at Tuscaloosa. So, home field advantage is going to matter here a lot, I think, especially for establishing the tone. But two things have to be true. Alabama's going to have to get back to being consistent. If they're not, if the weather, not only the defense impacts that, I think they're in for a long game. I think Alabama could absolutely win this. I think they could edge out. But Oklahoma, I know, in just sporadic fashion like they've been all season, they're going to hit some explosives. So to me, if I can make it really simple, is first turnover wins, who runs the ball wins.
Very good. Very well said. Is quarterback from Oklahoma mobile? The answer is yes. John Mateer, if there's anything they're going to do, is use him as a +1 quarterback. My thing, Scott, is I'm looking at both sides of the football. Who's going to be able to establish the run better? Oklahoma struggled in the run all year long. Alabama's run game has been absolutely dismal at times. I know they're getting the possibility of Jam Miller back, but I think in addition that they will have, a lot of people are not talking about, and I think about him back when I was watching film against us in week 4, is they're getting their true tight end back in Josh Cuevas, and that's somebody else that's been on the only person I really feel like they're not going to have back is Overton kid, the defensive end kid for them. He's still out, but Josh Cuevas being back offensively, I think will help in the outlet game, because that was something that was missing in the game against Alabama, because when Ty was getting broken down, he was not able to find his outlet, and Josh Cuevas killed us because I think he converted 3 different of those third downs, the heavy third down game that they had on us earlier in the year, and then of course caught an outlet pass that sealed basically helped seal the game there late in the fourth quarter of the game. But that's something that to me is going to be unique, because if you think about it, Oklahoma, they were relying on their defense to score a touchdown, turning over, Alabama turning the ball over, and that's kind of the way I am with you, Scott. Is that whoever truly establishes the run game, I think, is going to see the more production offensively. I still think you're going to see a low scoring ball game, and I still think it's going to be probably within a touchdown. But I would give Alabama the nod on this one, especially when I don't use the transitive property from the previous time. I look at this as a new game. They're applying different principles. People are back. They're going to be able to do different things. The nuances of the game will change. And when you look at it, Oklahoma still doesn't have a run game. John Mateer is inconsistent. And with that being said, even if the defense is playing well against Alabama, if their offense isn't successful, I think Alabama does enough to score a few touchdowns, kick a couple of field goals, and win this game by probably 7. What's your thinking on the score of it, Scott? I'm going to get you score prediction there.
Yeah, I hate to admit it, but I think Bama, if it's going to be done, it's going to be done by Bama, just because Oklahoma's too inconsistent. I would say if Oklahoma plays well, offensively, especially in being consistent on the ground, either through Mateer or through the traditional running game, RPO, however they manage to do it. I would love to say Alabama doesn't win this, but I have Alabama winning in a really close game. I would say 3 points. Now, again, the major X factor to all these predictions is a little bit of that weather, 1 or 2 turnovers, and that momentum shift. That's the thing, guys. To be honest with you, to me, if I can watch the first 2 or 3 series from each team, that's where I could give my best prediction. But I do think Alabama edges this out. I think, getting absolutely destroyed in Atlanta, if that doesn't wake you up, nothing will.
Mm-hmm.
And I just can't trust both the offensive coordinator for Oklahoma and Mateer's lack of consistency because, guys, for whatever reason, the Oklahoma OC seems to want to hunt explosives instead of having them generate organically. And it just should make you appreciate a little bit Mike Bobo more. But I think Bama finds a way. I think their defense is radically in change. I think Womack deserves all the credit in the world. I think it's going to be really physical, though. I think it's going to be kind of a barroom brawl where it's not even you won the fight. It's just the fact that you got to stand up and walk away.
Yeah, I'm a Brent Venables fan, and actually that's why I called the Oklahoma win against Alabama if their defense shows up, but I didn't realize the defense was going to have to show up and actually produce offensively for them too. I don't think that happens again. Those are the kind of things that happen like where you get the pump block like UGA did against Alabama in the SEC championship. Those things happen, but when they do, they're huge momentum changers, and that's what happened with Oklahoma. I think being in a home crowd, I think the crowd's going to go wild, but after the first quarter, once everything settles in and the pads are hot, I think you're going to see Alabama settle in. And if Oklahoma cannot generate any type of run game whatsoever, I mean, they outproduced them offensively 2-1 last game and still lost due to the turnover battle and time of possession. So, I look at those things and going forward, I don't think Alabama reproduces those mistakes. And I see Alabama probably looking at about a 27-21 type game is what I'm thinking. I'm thinking it's probably going to be less than a touchdown. We'll just have to see. But I do think Bama pulls it off in Norman this week. Let's look at the next game. To me, the next game at 12 noon on Saturday, you've got the Texas A&M, Mike Elko, and Mario Cristobal, the Miami Hurricanes, obviously under a lot of scrutiny, it seemed like over the 12-week period because of what happened with Notre Dame. And, as they go visit in College Station, the Texas A&M Aggies, really to me, I find this game to be very unique because – if Miami is able to go in and take care of business, you look at their like opponent, with Notre Dame, both playing them in weeks 1 and week 2, obviously giving Notre Dame both of their losses that they had. I sit there and think to myself, if Miami goes in and shows out like we saw at the beginning of the year and takes one in College Station, then all of a sudden it really puts kind of a sort of a damper on was Texas A&M really for real, or were they just a product of basically what their schedule was? Because you saw what happened in the Texas game, the previous, their last game, and what Texas did to them. And, I'm really interested to see the Miami team that shows up in College Station. But your thoughts on I guess we would be dealing with the 10 and the 7 seed in this situation as Miami goes and visits the Aggies in College Station.
Yeah, I think this one's really interesting because A&M's got some vulnerabilities. Miami has some vulnerabilities. You've seen them play their best, and then in really weird, sporadic fashion, you've seen them play their worst. I think what it comes down to is, again, stealing possessions, via turnovers, guys, is just so critical now, especially with the clock rules. You have less snaps and less plays to get things done. You can really count your offensive possessions even more now. And so the thing that's really interesting in a Reed versus Beck kind of matchup in terms of modality and player, Reed obviously a much better athlete, but he's a roller coaster. His highs are really, really high. His lows are really, really low. You saw his worst half of football against South Carolina. Obviously, A&M's defense had a lot of vulnerabilities too. South Carolina just did whatever they wanted to on offense, but Carson Beck's got a real issue throwing interceptions in bunches. And I think I don't want to say mentally fragile, but I want to say his rhythm is fragile. And so 1 or 2 mistakes leads to more mistakes, leads to more kind of the head being down, some comments being said, and it can get worse and worse and worse for you. Now, where A&M has got a really concern is their run defense. Yeah. If I were Mario Cristobal, what I would do is establish the run early and often. You have a really good offensive line, lean on them, make Carson Beck's life really easy, and then start attacking the intermediate game, basically making A&M have to pick their poison as it moves up and down the field, and then look to Marcel Reed to be consistent. That's something that I would gamble on, and I think you would win more often than not, is asking Marcel Reed to be hyper consistent for 60 minutes against a team that's actively as athletic as they are. And that's something that I think A&M fans, if they're being honest, they would say, yeah, that's a legitimate concern. The Notre Dame game came down to just one or two plays. We really haven't played a like athletic opponent until Texas, and then you saw what happened. So that's something that they're going to have to bounce back and just go to a program level view of this. Guys, understand these two programs have never been in this situation in the modern era.
Nope.
So they're both really fighting and clawing to establish and killing that narrative to say, hey, look, we're legitimate now. We're no longer the laughing stock of an 8-10 win team that's never going to have a chance to do anything. I like Elko as a head coach more. I think he's better at critical moments. But something that really interests me, again, is just getting that ground game going, guys. Like, you can do so much once you predicate everything off of that. But A&M being at home is such a huge advantage. And I think Marcel Reed can be really explosive against Miami. I think A&M's offensive line can do enough to deter. Now, I think they need to stop talking and stop giving some ammunition. There's no reason for it. Again, ask yourself, Coach, what did I benefit from by talking before the game's played?
Yeah.
So I would say I think A&M has a slight edge here. I think if they can just generate a few mistakes from Carson, I think they'll see more and more and more. Now, Carson could surprise me, but when those mistakes happen from Carson, as we know, they come in clusters, and they come in clusters at really bad times. And Miami's front's really good, but I don't know if their defense is good enough to stop A&M that many times.
It's well said, and what I want to understand too is, Concepcion was not used very well in Texas A&M's loss to Texas, and it's the same thing. Malachi Toney has got to get involved with Miami's offense. It also comes with a ground game between Fletcher and Brown in the backfield, and that's something to me that will aid Carson Beck, is that if you can have a more balanced offensive game of running the football, if you think about it, when he was at Georgia, to me, when he really thrived is when our run game was productive in game, because that allowed to set up his play action, to layer the football, which he did a great job of doing, and had the ability to move the ball down the field. But you're right, that sporadicness, he's got to be consistent. He can't be counted on to be first, second, and third down throwing the football. They've got to establish the run game. We're going to see how he's going to handle the pressure of the 12th man in College Station with Texas A&M. But Marcel Reed and Mike Elko's offense, they've got to get Concepcion involved in the game. And it's the same thing on the other side. To me, whoever establishes that run game just a little bit better, and I know with Bell being hurt earlier in the year for Texas A&M, and now they've had to rely on other running backs to step up, that's kind of assisted in Marcel Reed becoming the primary ball carrier. But that can't be the way it is, because to me, Miami is going to key on that. But again, it kind of goes back to what we talked about in the original game, the Alabama-Oklahoma game. It's whoever establishes, to me, the better running game. It's funny how we go back to that narrative. Isn't it crazy that always seems to be the case, that whoever establishes the running game just a little bit better seems to show the success of what you want to see productivity-wise for 4 quarters. So I think you're going to be in a shootout. I think Miami, though, in this case scenario, if they don't get the run game involved and Carson is being relied on to heavily throw the football, 30 to 35-plus attempts a game, I see this going sideways very quickly. I think Texas A&M wins at home, and I think they win at home by probably 10 is what I'm looking at. So I'm thinking something in the neighborhood of like 34 to 24, something like that. What's your thoughts on the score?
I'd say I fully agree. If A&M finds a way to leverage Carson to be consistent, I hate to be this way, but his time at Georgia, I don't remember a critical game that Carson was the sole reason that Georgia won. Now in 2024, he deserves his credit in specific games, but even in the Texas game, guys, it was all about Georgia's ground game establishing itself early and often, because Carson did enough in certain spots, but he didn't do enough to win it by himself. So I think A&M wins. I would say slightly less, because I do think Mario is going to try to be consistent. He'd be an offensive line guy. I think he's going to try to lean on him. But for some reason, I just have a feeling in my gut that Miami has been playing ACC competition, and they go to an SEC home field, and they see things are a little bit faster, and the more they lean on Carson, I think that's kind of a mistake. But I would say Texas A&M, I'd say 27, Miami 21.
I like it. I love this comment right here. He says, hey, guys, does Carson choke or shine? And then a famous coach once said, run the ball, stop the run. There's no doubt we like what Kirby Smart has tried to establish this year. But, that moniker, that statement is something I think that any NFL, any college, any high school coach would want to say. especially from my perspective. If you run the football very well, that's the reason why the offensive line, to me, the productivity of your offensive line, staying healthy, staying together, building the chemistry, you will be amazed at all those things that sort of correlate and snowball off the fact from a coach's perspective that if your offensive line is gelling and doing good things at the right time, they're communicating very well, their pass pro is solid, they understand the run game, they get north and south, they have that grit in their step, and they move the line of scrimmage, you're going to be amazed at the success. Your offensive success is definitely going to permeate from that. So there's no doubt about it. But, my idea is that I think Carson will probably end up overtime. I'm not going to say he's going to choke, but I do think, you got to think about it, guys. He's never played in a playoff game. Think about it. And the only playoff game that he's had any experience in is I think he threw maybe 2 or 3 passes in the national championship game against TCU.
TCU, yes, sir.
And I think that's it, because in 2023 they got knocked out. 2024, obviously, he got hurt in the SEC championship. So this is his first true start in a playoff game in College Station with the 12th man with Texas A&M. So I just, as I said a while ago, I do think Texas A&M uses the home field advantage. I don't know if Miami can stay with them. We'll have to see. I think it's going to be a fight in a phone booth for a couple of quarters, but as time goes on, I think College Station ends up pulling away. But it's going to come down to who runs the ball more efficiently.
And the last thing, caveat on, Mario Cristobal's got a really bad habit in critical moments of trying to take the reins, and it just hasn't worked out. So, Again, I just want to give Mike Elko his credit. I think Mike Elko is the better head coach in this situation. But I'm like you, Coach. I think it really comes down to keeping football simple.
Yep, I agree. The game that's going to come on right after that is the 3:30 game. Now, funny enough, the 3:30 game and the 7 o'clock game both have the group of 5 teams playing Ole Miss and Oregon respectively. And it's sort of like, hey, the patriotic duty of bringing in the group of 5 team. And I sit there and think to myself, this is the middle of the day and the evening games that we're about to watch. An SEC playing a Tulane team and an Oregon Big Ten team playing James Madison. It really just dampers my feelings about the playoffs. I mean, I'm not going to blow smoke up your butt and say that I'm excited. I love watching football. I'm definitely going to watch every minute of the game, but there's just something about the fact of watching those 2 group of 5s play Ole Miss and play Oregon respectively. But this game has a lot of implications on us, because obviously the winner of this game right there will be who we'll be seeing. I guess it'd be New Year's Eve night around 8 o'clock, if I'm not mistaken. It's a late game, if I'm not mistaken, for the Sugar Bowl. I may be wrong. It is a late game. I can't recall.
Yes, sir, it is.
When I think about, and then Tulane and Ole Miss have already played each other, a 45-10 shellacking in week 4. Trinidad Chavlis was just beginning to establish himself. He had just come off a big win against Arkansas. He had the start with Kentucky, started his first game against Arkansas week 3. And of course, this was his second game, and he went off in this as well. But, as you look at this game, with Pete Golden taking over, Lane Kiffin's vacancy, leaving, going to LSU. What's your thoughts about how this game is going to play out versus, are we just basically going to see another 45-10 type ball game?
I'm interested in how they are, because Lane's such an active component. I think he's such a good counterpuncher, kind of an adjust to the adjustment coach. I mean, stuff he did against Georgia, I mean, him and Charlie Weiss did an outstanding job. And Trinidad was executing. Now, Trinidad's had issues executing the simple stuff, but being really good at the elite stuff. It's kind of funny to watch. Against Oklahoma, you would see a check down miss, but then you would see this elite throw and triple coverage that was kind of not even part of the progression. And you're like, how in the world does that happen? I mean, Ole Miss is legit, guys. Even without Lane, I think they roll in this game because Charlie Weiss is going to be there. I mean, as you guys can see, I mean, this looks like more of a scrimmage game than anything, which unfortunately with the timing of these games, Coach, it baffles my mind, just like you. Look, at worst, Texas A&M and Miami should be the 3:30 game. Why they're not, it doesn't make any sense to me. Again, maybe there's agreements, but who cares? Rewrite the agreement. But the thing about Ole Miss that I'm really interested in is that active component. How much do they miss Lane? And obviously their health. I hate to say this to any Tulane fan out there, but really understand Ole Miss fans and those who are really tuned in are looking at this more of, okay, how's Ole Miss health and their injuries looking heading to Georgia in the Sugar Bowl? And I'm worried about that game. I know Lane is an active component. That is a huge deficiency, but B. Golding is a heck of a DC, even though Bama fans hate him. And I really think Ole Miss walks away with this. Now, will it be as clean as the first one? No, because I want to give Tulane some credit. They're going to have time to game plan. But unfortunately, with the way that the college football committee and everyone has established this, you're going to see these games, and 100 of them could be played, and the G5 win one. And it's just an unfortunate component of the way it's established now. But I think Ole Miss rolls.
They should roll. And honestly, I know a lot of people out there, it's so funny that want to caveat off of this, will saying, well, if we blow these two teams out, the group of five, all of a sudden that's going to be the talk after the playoffs are over with, if the group of five needs their own championship. And I highly agree with that. I think that's something that needs to be done immediately, unless one of these teams just has a surprise, just finds a way to win a ball game. I don't know how that happens unless that team shows up in a coma. But, greater things have ceased to amaze me, watching an App State beating Michigan up in Ann Arbor. I've seen plenty of an Ole Miss, Southern Miss team beating Georgia a long time ago. You see all these unique perspectives happen, but to me, you leave two teams that should be in the playoffs out because you're entertaining and because the ACC completely have lost their freaking minds. Not only in this year, but I can't even go into that rabbit hole of their scheduling debacle, what they're dealing with. But because they have no true ACC winner that can be the defining point, you have to bring Miami in as the only ACC representative, leaving two decent teams out of the playoffs that should be playing. Because if you look, I know Oregon got destroyed by Ohio State in the Rose Bowl. I guess it was a couple of years ago. Maybe was it last year? I can't recall.
Last year, Coach.
Yeah, and then you have of course, I think it was. Tennessee getting destroyed as well. And what's the difference of a group of five getting destroyed? Well, to me, it's taking two quality top teams away. Now you say, well, these guys deserve to be there. Yeah, they deserve to be there, but they deserve to be playing amongst your teams that are in the group of five. And to me, you're just taking away the ample opportunity for two really good teams to not make the playoffs. And unfortunately, we're going to watch two beatdowns happen at the 3:30 and the 7:00 time slot, I believe, by Ole Miss and by Oregon. Ole Miss are winners of five, of course. They have losses to Georgia. And that's their only loss. Tulane loses to Ole Miss and to UTSA. There's their two losses. They are winners of five, though, their last five. But you can see here in the stats, Tulane didn't even score until the end of the game. It was mop-up duty. They had 3 points the entire game. You can see how they outscored them as well. Trinidad Shamlis had himself a pretty decent day there, 307 passing yards, also rushed for 112. And, Deuce Alexander, I like that kid. He's a trackster. He's a speedster, and he's someone we've definitely got to watch once Ole Miss comes down to New Orleans to play us, because there's no doubt about it. I see another 45-10, if 10 points, shellacking of this situation. The only thing that's unique is I do applaud John Sumerall, if I'm not mistaken, before he heads to Florida. He does plan on coaching them through this scenario, unlike what Lane Kiffin's done and moved on to LSU. And to each his own what they've done, but still, nonetheless, I see us taking on the Ole Miss Rebels for round 2 down in New Orleans, Sugar Bowl, New Year's Day at 8:00 p.m. All right, the last one. This is the 7:00 game. You have the Oregon Ducks, all right, finishing third in the Big Ten this year, Dan Lanning's team. You got the James Madison Dukes. They'll be headed up to Eugene, Oregon to play, like I said, Dan Lanning's Oregon Ducks. And, again, to me, this is just too lopsided. I sit here and look, James Madison won 8 in a row. Their losses to Louisville. Louisville obviously did a pretty decent job this year. Obviously the shellacking they gave Kentucky there at the end of the year as well. And then, of course, Oregon with its one loss to Indiana. They're winners of 6 right now. But, again, just your situation where they're third in the Big Ten behind Indiana and behind Ohio State. But again, here we are watching the shellacking that's probably going to take place at 3:30, and then again now you've got another group of 5 playing, the number 3 Big Ten team up in Eugene. How do you see this shaking out?
A lot to a little for Oregon. I mean, just a caveat, guys, understand something. The best 5 conference champions is archaic. College football is in a fluid state. And so the criteria needs to be fluid to represent that, because like Coach is saying, we have the 12 most deserving. We don't have the 12 best. And to me, that's kind of it sucks for the sport, period, because now we have teams that played hard competition all year. And now that we get 2 of these games, and again, look, credit to JMU and credit to Lane, like absolutely outstanding job, but to bump teams from the 20 20th rankings up into the top 12 to watch them play Oregon and Ole Miss, who are two legitimate opponents at a Power 4 level. It's just unfair. It's like asking a Bush League driver on his first day, okay, you're going to race against the Winston Cup All-Stars. It's
Right.
not fair, and it's not even comparable. Again, the timing of this game doesn't make a lot of sense. And I could go on my soapbox for days and days and days. But look, JMU doesn't really stand a chance. Like, guys, these games could be played 100, 1,000 times and JMU win one. And it would have to be at Oregon lost the game as much as JMU won at best. And the thing that really gets frustrating with this is, especially as a fan of a team that's kind of late, this is a warm-up game for Ole Miss. This is a warm-up game for Oregon. So Texas Tech is obviously pre-planning, just like we are pre-planning for Ole Miss. They're pre-planning for Oregon. Oregon's a balanced team. Obviously, they're lost to Indiana. Indiana's a really good, efficient team. Obviously, they're as legit can get. They weren't last year. I think they are this year. So I think Oregon wins big. And again, it's more of a scrimmage than a game. I think the first half you'll see. And the thing is, both coaches, at worst, let's say Oregon and Ole Miss only win by 14. I guarantee you're watching players on a pitch count. Just keep eyes on numbers and say, man, I only saw that guy for 5 times. It may be something just to say, look, we're going to test you out. I know you're coming off injury. But that's what these games are. I hate to say it, and I hate that this is the 7 o'clock, but Oregon by a lot.
I agree with you. I think it's going to be a blowout. And one thing you kind of, injuries are part of the game, but it's almost tough when you're out there going against a group of 5 team and you're worried about, you don't want to lose someone to injury because you want to win the ball game, obviously. And I know JMU and both Tulane are going to come out there as world beaters. They want to win. They want to show the world what they're about. But it just comes down to it. My Joes are going to beat your Joes. And, what do you think is going to happen if these two teams get blown out on primetime TV at 3:30 and 7 o'clock respectively? Do you think there's going to be a change just like last year? The automatic winners were, from each division. That would have made Duke actually be in the playoffs from the previous year. Do you think they make a quick change immediately and we don't see the group of 5 next year? Do you think that's something that they'll make a quick exit to and change over?
I would hope so, because here's my dynamic and narrative. So Cincinnati was and UCF really are the two what I would consider exceptions to the rule. UCF did beat an Auburn team, but that Auburn team had kind of had all their dreams and hopes pulled from them by Georgia and Atlanta. And then Cincinnati, you watched them play an Alabama team that ultimately would lose to Georgia. And Cincinnati deserved to be there. In fact, Cincinnati arguably was one of the best 5 to 6 teams, but you watch how Alabama did something they hadn't done all year, which is just hand the ball off repeatedly. And you watch Cincinnati get worn down, broken down. Because, guys, look, the lines of scrimmage comparable between a program like Oregon and JMU, it's just different. It's not only different in small margins, it's different in worlds. And so I would hope so, but I'll be honest with you, just like I do for the voters, the AP poll guys, everyone, I don't have faith in the committee until they give me a reason to have faith in them, because they didn't articulate the Notre Dame situation well. And again, no caveat to Notre Dame. They cried and took their ball home, which made it look worse on them. It kind of took the pressure off the committee to say, well, why'd you have us at 9, then 10, then out, instead of having Miami ahead of us the whole time? I would hope so, Coach. The 5 best conference champs has to go. At most, it should be 4. It should be the Power 4, no ifs, ands, or buts, with maybe the exception of a situation like Duke. And that's just because the ACC can't handle its own.
Nope.
And that's, again, another issue against Mario Cristobal. Miami's been there 20 years and never won it. They've only shown up and won. So I would hope they would change the dynamic of the playoff. It needs to be one rule needs to be gold and concrete for the college football playoff. The 12 best teams, period, most deserving, all these caveats, all these write-outs, they need to be thrown out. All the other criteria needs to be crystal clear, black and white. So every week when they upload that poll and they articulate why, it should be so simple to say, the reason A, this is what this team did. Reason B, this is what this team did. Reason C, this is what this team did. And you go through those 3 reasons, 5, 10, doesn't matter, for each and every team to justify why they're there. It's ridiculous. And again, I am no Notre Dame fan whatsoever, but you have to know the heartbreak for them, Texas, Vanderbilt, BYU, the fringe playoff teams. Watching JMU and Tulane take your spot has to be just devastating. And I don't think anyone's the winner in this,
No,
other than the money.
You're
going to
exactly
JMU and Tulane.
Exactly, and that's the reason why I was going to bring this back up. You know how much the Grove is going to make this weekend by having a home playoff game? That's my only gripe as well, is that they remove the group of five and you have the two more deserving teams that are in the actual playoffs in the top 12. Why in the world the teams that have a bye don't get an actual home game as well is beyond me. That's the only gripe that I have over the group of fives being in there. Sanford Stadium needs a home playoff game because the guys in the Grove this year, I think, is something in the neighborhood. They're going to gross anywhere from, it was 65 to 80 million dollars is what that program was going to make by having a home playoff game generated after the SEC championship. And that's something, and that's with Tulane coming to town. Come on, give me a break, guys. But you're right, though. Money is the only thing to me that wins in this situation. Your networks win. But I know there's going to be a lot of fans sitting there on Saturday. And, you know, why the Alabama and Oklahoma game isn't in that 3:30 slot. You know, I can understand Oregon playing James Madison in that 8 o'clock or that 7:30 slot, but I do not understand why you don't have a more premier game than on that second day versus us watching those two group of fives playing, you know, the SEC and the Big Ten respectively. We'll just have to see. Maybe they'll make me eat crow tomorrow or Saturday when I watch them, but I just really think that we're going to watch something that's just going to come to fruition, and seeing Ole Miss and Oregon just basically devastate and embarrass these group of five teams out there, and make them, you know, send them home with parting gifts and give them the wave and say bye-bye. Let's talk about our dogs, big dog. We got 56 minutes in. We got about 10 minutes left here. Those of you who are part of the chat, we appreciate you being with us tonight with Head on a Swivel. My name is Chris Hayes, and always with me on Head on a Swivel is Scott Green. In the wake of the SEC championship, and obviously I know Coach Smart's getting at it after it. We obviously have probably, if anybody pays attention to Twitter, I didn't get a chance to get the video out there, but, you know, Coach Smart's laying into those guys. Everybody loves to record his audios. He was crawling the offensive ass in the video, but that's just Coach Smart in general. That's what you're going to get from him every day. So to me, that doesn't faze me when I hear those things, because that's something that happens every day. People who are not around the game don't realize that that's normal. That's an everyday thing that he's doing, but it's still fun to listen to, needless to say. But, you know, the thing that I look at is Coach Smart, obviously, with a lot of the, you know, nominations for Coach of the Year, and obviously what he does for the discipline and the character of the game, and winning his SEC championship with one of the youngest rosters he's ever got. There's a big difference as we move forward, Scott, to this year's Sugar Bowl with whoever shows up, more than likely Ole Miss. You know, last year he was dealing with his father's death. Obviously, we had the terroristic attack that happened in New Orleans the morning of, or the night before, I can't recall, but it caused a complete disarray throughout the day. It just made the whole cloud of just a weird, there was just this weird vibe to me all day long as they tried to figure out what they were going to do with the game. And then you had Gunnar Stockton coming in, making his first debut in the playoffs in the Sugar Bowl of all things, playing a very good Notre Dame team with a top 5 defense in the nation. I'm just curious your thoughts as we move into the Sugar Bowl and we take on the winner of the Tulane Ole Miss game. What are your thoughts about this team versus where we were a year ago?
Again, it's worlds apart. I think all those events really encapsulated kind of the weird feeling around Georgia in 2024. It wasn't nothing can go right. You win a lot of games, but it was winning despite this, winning despite that. And so I was really proud of the team for making it. But against Notre Dame, having Gunnar in his first true start, really, really concerning. But kudos to Gunnar. When I left that game, I felt more comfortable with him than I did Carson Beck, especially towards the end of the season.
Me too.
And I felt more worried about the skill set we had. You know, Dylan Bell could have had a 150 plus yard day, probably a touchdown on there, and Gunnar could have probably thrown for 300 yards. I mean, 3 for 200 against, like you said, a really, really good defense. But comparing the two guys, again, football is only complicated if you make it. Georgia's ability to run the ball and put defenses in conflict through raw physicality, being fundamentally sound, and having a really good stable of backs. Now we're talking about how healthy certain people are as compared to, okay, this guy's injured, so someone else is stepping in. I mean, at times last year, you had 8 to 9 offensive linemen rotate through in a single game. And
Mm-hmm.
obviously, the offensive line wasn't coordinated well because of a lack of experience, but also just when you're stepping in those different roles so many times, you can't really get comfortable in what you're doing. And that one mistake or that one miscommunication you have between being a right guard or a left tackle, or it impacts you a lot. Now, this offensive line's had a time, a game to play together. I thought Tolliver played outstanding for what was. I did see mistakes early on, but again, that's against a really good Bama defensive front and who's really experienced. You're talking round one, round two looks, if not now, in the future. So it's drastically different, but really it comes down to the mentality of the team. I think this team may need to get a psych evaluation for just their violent tendencies because they're always seeking it out. I mean, when I watch this defense play, it's like they just play with such a reckless abandon, but it's controlled violence, which makes it even scarier. They're not just flying around to hit for hit's sake, and they're trying to hit you to punish you because that they're responsibly doing it. So it's drastically different. I think the team's just from top down in terms of how it faces the game and how it's grown throughout the year. That's what's made it really special because this team, I think, has truly in its core understood we cannot accomplish what we want if we are who we are now. We have to become something more. And week after week and week after week and week after week, you saw improvements. Sometimes you would see little improvements. You wouldn't see that big jump you were hoping for. But really, this defense has flipped the switch on. The personnel decisions have been great and wonderful, and the people who are being put in those positions to make plays are making them. So I'm never confident about any game. Just to be honest, the fan in me won't let me, and
Mm-hmm.
Ole Miss does worry me because they're a legitimate opponent.
Mm-hmm.
But in the position we're in this year, I would take it 99 times out of 100 compared to last year, and really 100 out of 100, just because of the situation, both in the mentality, how the season went, what led up to it. Again, we were there despite all those issues. And I think that was one of those games. Like if it wasn't going to be Notre Dame, it was going to be someone else that was able to show, hey, look, Georgia's just not what they have been. And this year, I think Georgia has the opportunity, and I hope retains that mentality they had against Bama to show everyone, look, we're not going anywhere. 1 year does not make a program. So I'm
Mm.
really excited. Again, I think the offense, perfect example. I think the offense is not necessarily deficiencies against Bama, but the little things they can get right. London Humphreys blocking the wrong guy while pulling across the heel line of the offensive line. That resulted in a touchdown the second play that was ran, and it was an elite block to the point where Scott Howard's jumping up and down saying, what a block by London before the touchdown's even called. I
Mm-hmm.
think these guys take it personally, and they have such a conviction to get those things right. So I think they use a 28-7 game just like a loss. I think they look at it and say, hey, we didn't do enough. We didn't do well enough. And as amazing as that defense was, I guarantee you they're thinking the same thing. Why do you get 3 yards here instead of you getting a TFL? Why didn't you make this tackle against Ryan Williams? So I'm truly excited for it. This team, I just couldn't love them anymore just because, again, they're barroom brawlers and they love it. They
Yep.
love every minute of it.
They're battle tested. Run the football, stop the run. Gunnar Stockton has 13, 14 games now under his belt. He's developed and polished, still learning, still getting better every game. But I think he just brings a different attribute to the game this year than where he was last year in just one game started. But still did well enough to me to win the ball game for Georgia. There's a big difference though when your defense is playing well, and that's something that I'm really excited about. Our defense is playing solid. You look across the board offensively, all of a sudden we don't have, we're trying to get the ball to Arian Smith, Dylan Bell into our tight end game. Now we've got a Zachariah Branch, we got a Noah Thomas, we've still got our Dylan Bells, we've still got all the different tight end game concept, but we've got a to me, our running game is what's made that successful. And last year, I know Trevor Etienne had a very good year for the Georgia Bulldogs. Obviously, getting going in the NFL draft, and I think he did really well for his draft stock at the University of Georgia. But to me, the way the tandem of our offensive line doing their job, and I just find us being a little bit more efficient this year. Believe it or not, I hate to say that, even behind the fact that we had Jared Wilson and Tate Ratledge, and I'm losing the guard, Dylan Fairchild, and we're looking at running behind Malachi Tolliver, Dontrell Glover, Juan Gaston, true freshmen, my guys, and looking at that and still seeing and feeling solid behind that is really nice. But to me, all of that is prefaced on the fact that we have a solid run game, and our defense defense is beginning to gel in a way that's getting scary. I know that you saw it in the SEC championship game, but we're moving differently, Scott. We are getting set up, and we've got guys flying to the football, and that is a lot different than what I even saw last year this time. So there's a lot of exciting things to look at, but we do need to talk about one thing in particular. There is one kind of side note. I won't say a negative note, but we have gotten word that obviously Gabe Harris looking like he's dealing with a turf toe injury, and we're not sure if he's going to be back even for the season, much less for this game specifically. So instead of really focusing on the fact that Gabe Harris missing is going to be a bad thing, who do we see stepping up in that position, and what do you feel about that situation specifically?
I think this team looks at that as a challenge and not a deficiency. I mean, you have guys like JJA, Zayden Walker, guys who have been put in the back half of the season and had outstanding performances. And I think you see the same thing here. It is a loss in terms of experience, but guys, I don't know of an offensive line that I look at our starting eight. That's what I call them. So your front four in different combinations, your different packages. Obviously, we have so many personnel changes because of that plethora of talent. So, I mean, you saw McLeod play a good bit against Alabama. You know, Christian Miller obviously had his significant role, Walker, Johnson. I think you see more rotation, and I think you see a much more an imaginative approach because you have that young talent. I couldn't give you a single name to replace Gabe Harris, but I think you see a combination of players. I mean, I could even see Chris Cole again being bumped down to that ghost nine outside and causing tons of havoc. But like you said, Coach, they're moving different, and that makes me feel a lot more comfortable about it. Again, no report here. Does Gabe play? Does Gabe not play? Turf toe is a really miserable thing to go through. It's very
So painful.
finicky. Yeah, and that's the thing. You don't want to rush him out if he does have a chance to play in the rest of the playoffs. But you are going to miss him in some ways. But really, you could benefit in other ways. I mean, it's the same thing when you saw other guys go down, like Ernest Green when he was hurt playing through injury. You saw Juan Gasson, as many mistakes as he made. You saw the positives, and your bad luck eventually can become good luck if you work hard enough at it. So yeah, it's an interesting situation, but again, I think the remaining 10 are playing just so outstanding, and then even behind that 10, you have 4 or 5 guys that have just been so critical in the rotational piece, especially the packages.
I think you probably see maybe Elijah Griffin get moved out. I wouldn't be surprised if you see more of a high dosage of Joseph Jonah Jonier, and
Mhm.
possibly the JJ Hane kid from Germany will be out there as well. Those will be probably the three that we'll see rotate there. But you're right though. With having Chris Cole, what they'll do is bring in that rabbit package where you only have true 2 interior D linemen. When they go dime and they'll run 2 stand ups and Gabe will come off, you'll probably see more of Zayden Walker with Chris Cole in there.
Mhm.
Instead of it being Gabe and Chris Cole on the stand-ups. But yeah, it's nice about it is all of a sudden now, because these kids have grown up over 13 ball games, that you're seeing that fluidity. And I think really Schumann is doing a great job of finding and getting the right personnel in there where they feel comfortable, and they're doing a great job of communicating with one another with the vets that are in there. I wanted to highlight Bill's question here. Is it true about the new DC at Texas, or just something fake on X? That is true as true can be. Will Muschamp is going to the University of Texas under Sarkisian as the new DC. I think they're going to be paying him upwards of $3 to $4 million a year. I mean, opportunity to go coach ball, man. You can't take the old ball coach out of someone. If they still got the spirit of wanting to go do it, he's going to jump on it. And I'm sure Kirby's fine with that as well. I mean, I know a lot of Georgia fans look at it and thought he was just going to be home for the rest of his life. I mean, you can't take that out of someone if they're willing to want to go do it and the money's right for them. I don't blame Will for, taking the opportunity to go to Texas and compete and do what he's doing out there. There's no ill will. I'm sure Coach Smart's going to be. I'm sure there'll be a lot of ribbing when they do play Texas again. Between the two, but still, nonetheless, those two guys go back a long way. And I wish Will Muschamp, good things happening, just not the week he plays Georgia.
Yeah, and that'll be quite some time. Now, I was going to caveat it this way: look at it positively. See what the message is behind the move. So to me, it was: do you bump Will up after his son's done at Vanderbilt and he's
Right.
more active taking a role? Do you move him up and try to co-DC someone that's getting offers from Texas who's going to pay you just tons of oil money, and then have Glenn Schumann's role diminished? Not likely. So I would look at this as a positive. Hey, look, Glenn Schumann's likely to stay. And again, guys, keeping someone like Glenn Schumann, who's young, who's enthusiastic, who's pliable, willing to learn, and is learning at such a rapid rate, like the sky's the ceiling with that kind of individual. Now, Coach Muschamp's the same thing as a DC. Honestly, you couldn't lose with either one, and I fully agree. I think Will and Kirby, they love each other enough, man. Like, again, best of luck. Get your 3 to 4 million. You'll regret it when we play you. Outside of that, you'll be great.
Exactly. I do like what, even though I hate Florida, I think John Sumerall is a good fit down there. He's going to establish the discipline and accountability they want. I'm really looking forward to the guy that was at Memphis that goes to Arkansas next year that made the comment about our kids with the driving, because Arkansas is on our schedule next year, on UGA schedule. I wanted to hit on this one comment here from Big D Dog, Dontrell Glover status. I think Dontrell's probably going to be about 5 pounds lighter because of vomiting. I'm sure he's got a lot of stairs that he's ran. I'm sure that they've disciplined him and Bo Walker with that incident. And granted, I know there's a lot of ambiguity when you have these guys that are going to they want that breaking news to go out. And granted, I have forgotten to scan Coca-Cola's going out of the scanners from Walmart. But, just like with what we heard them trying to do to go back in and take care of this, these guys make too much NIL money to be taking stuff from Walmart if that's the case. But I'm not going to elaborate on that because I really don't know the whole story. But that kind of situation, that's the reason why Coach Smart is never going to put a ultimatum on any kid with a disciplinary issue, whether it's an arrest, a minor arrest, or whatever it may be the situation. He's going to handle that internally. The other situation where you had the Nair Daniels kid that got tossed from the team, that situation is a little bit different. That's one of those, like, if you're looking at a level 1, level 2, level 3, in this case scenario, those kids made a bad decision or either screwed up and just were boneheaded in that situation. That gets taken care of, what you call in-house. You don't want that distraction. I'm sure both of those guys ran until they couldn't see straight, probably puked a good amount of times and rallied. And I think Dontrell, if I'm not mistaken, has been practicing with the ones. We'll probably, they may sit him out for a series or two, but, I don't see any longevity to their discipline status on that.
Yeah, based on my limited experience in law enforcement, guys, Walmart has a very 100% prosecution in their loss prevention. Again, I'm not giving them any excuses. Look, you go through the self checkout, make sure you do the self checkout right. There are reports out there. I'd really emphasize to you guys, take 5 minutes, read it. Again, it's not a nothing burger because it could have led to distraction. But like Coach is saying, you handle it internally. They made a mistake. It wasn't really a mistake in that they actively shoplifted. They did what's called passively. They forgot to scan something. They went out of the store. Walmart tried to get their attention. They did come back in. They explained their position. But again, Walmart is they're not dealing with shoplifting anymore. So they looked at it like they tried to. Again, I don't see anything legal really coming out of this because their story does add up. Why would you steal and then go right back in? But look, that's a mistake that you can't afford to make because you have such a higher level of responsibility because you are so glorified among the university. And because Georgia's the premier program of all of college football, any mistake, any toe that goes out of line now reflects on the entire program, not just you. And I think that's what Kirby's going to instill in them while they're looking at the stars at 5 a.m, wondering why they can't see straight.
Exactly. Well put, my friend. I sit here and look at all the people who've joined tonight to be a part of Head on a Swivel. Scott and I can't thank you enough for your participation with us. We are going to continue our shows every Thursday. Of course, next week, Thursday being Christmas, we won't have our show to do, but we will be doing a rapid reaction post Georgia and probably Ole Miss in the Sugar Bowl as well. And we will continue to produce our Thursday show and reflection of what's going. As time goes on and we get into the off season, we are going to be looking at player recruits. We're going to be, player profiles, at recruit profiles. So even in the off season, we'll be talking about things that are relevant. We're not just going to get into what they call talking season. We will be prognosticating on different things that are happening around the league and the SEC itself and talking about things that the coaches are doing, the coaches' moves, but as well as with the transfer portal. I think we're 2 weeks away from the transfer portal opening up, that window opening up. We'll have a lot to talk about of who we're looking at. I know Jaden Ball right now is on Georgia's radar, that really good running back out of Florida. Wouldn't be the first time we've taken a running back out of Florida if that happens as well. The Bo Pribula kid from Missouri goes into the portal today, the number one starter for Missouri, so all those things will be happening. So even with the offseason, as we move through the playoffs and Lord willing, Georgia gets the chance to go deep and maybe get the chance for that national championship this year. So we're going to continue to provide you quality content. We're always going to be with you. with our rapid reactions of the games as well. And we'll definitely continue the show Head on a Swivel every Thursday night with you. And we love to have your comments. If you haven't had a chance yet, please make sure you hit the like button and the thumbs up and give us that algorithm that helps get this show out there, because we definitely appreciate your time with us this evening. Scott, any closing thoughts as we move into tomorrow's game with Alabama and Oklahoma?
Enjoy it, guys, because basically the team's earned the privilege to sit back with their feet propped up, get some extra rest. And again, I'm bad about being superstitious and taking what happened last year or last game. Understand each game's its own thing, each playoff's its own unique dynamic. The final four teams or the teams playing the quarterfinals are totally different than they were last year. Again, super excited to watch, the games tomorrow. I love the fact that I love a rock fight as much as I love a shootout. And I think we're likely to see both. Obviously, the other games, I'm just going to be tuning in every once in a while and making sure that Trinidad's standing upright and who's going to play us in the Sugar Bowl. But guys, enjoy it. The college season's already flown by. It seemed like I blinked and we were playing Marshall, and I'm sitting there pouring sweat with Gunner getting 4 touchdowns, wondering what the heck we're going to do this season. So enjoy every minute of it, man.
Well said, friend. As always, we appreciate you joining Head on a Swivel tonight. I'm Chris. He's Scott. We thank you for your time. Again, make sure you hit that thumbs up button. We'd love to have the notifications for you to check out the podcast. Congratulations on the drawing tonight as part of Patreon. We look forward to seeing what the scores are going to be and who we're going to be playing in New Orleans coming up on New Year's evening. And if we haven't seen you by then, we wish you a Merry Christmas. We hope you have a great holiday and have a Happy New Year. As always, Head on a Swivel is going to be with you on Thursday nights. We will not be with you next Thursday, though, as that will be Christmas Day. Spend time with your family. Take care and God bless. And as always, go Dogs.
Go Dogs.